All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about those incredibly detailed looping worlds you build inside your head. You know the ones. Sometimes they feel even more real than your actual life. We're going to explore the architecture of that simulated mind.
Have you ever felt this? You kind of snap out of a deep thought. Maybe you're driving or just staring out a window. And for a split second, you're almost disappointed. Because for a moment, that fake scenario you were running, it felt so much more real than your actual life. It's a surprisingly common thing, and we're about to unpack exactly why it happens.
So first up, let's pull back the curtain and really explore what's going on inside this world in your head. What does it actually look like, and what's it even for? Now, this is not just idle daydreaming. We're talking about building entire realities from scratch. Replaying and finally winning that argument from 3 years ago, or mentally rehearsing that perfect witty speech you'll probably never give. Crafting these super detailed scenarios where you succeed, or preparing for disasters that, well, they might never happen. Having entire back and forth conversations that are completely imaginary. But here's what's so fascinating. These are not random. Your brain is actually trying to solve something.
And this is absolutely crucial, so I want you to really hear this. If any of that sounds familiar, you are not broken. You're not weak. You're not wasting your life. This isn't some kind of flaw in your character. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's trying to simulate, to test, and to prepare.
Okay, so if this is just our brain doing its job, what's the actual machinery behind it all? Well, let's take a look at your brain's very own built-in flight simulator. At the heart of it is something called the default mode network. Just think of it as what your brain gets up to when you're not focused on a task out in the world. It's kind of the brain's idle mode. But for many of us, especially if you're prone to this deep kind of thinking, this network is, well, it's hyperactive. It doesn't just wander. It actively builds these complex, elaborate simulations of what could be or what should have been.
And the process it uses for this is called counterfactual thinking. Now, it sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It just means your brain is running alternate versions of reality. And it's not trying to torture you by showing you what you missed out on. No, it's trying to learn from the past so it can prepare you for the future. It's an incredibly powerful processing tool.
This is just the perfect way to think about it. You are literally running simulations the same way a pilot practices in a flight simulator. You're testing how you might respond to different situations. You're building confidence for that big meeting. Or maybe you're preparing for a tough conversation. And you get to do it all from the safety of your own mind.
But here's where it gets dangerous. This amazing tool, well, it can also become a trap. So how in the world do we tell the difference?
Well, the allure is all about control, right? I mean, in the real world, you can't predict how someone's going to react. You don't know what's coming next. But in your mind, you're the director, you're the writer, you're the star of the show. You always know the perfect thing to say. You get to feel understood, you get to win. And that feeling, that sense of control, can be so addictive, especially if you feel kind of powerless in your day-to-day life.
So here's the line in the sound. This is the crucial distinction you have to make. Are you preparing or are you protecting? Preparing is when you mentally rehearse something you actually plan to do, and that rehearsal leads to action. Protecting, on the other hand, is when you hide out in that fantasy world to avoid real-world discomfort, and that only ever leads to more avoidance. This right here is the question. The one you have to ask yourself the next time you find yourself totally lost in one of these mental movies. Is this preparing me for real life, or is it protecting me from it? Honestly, the answer to that question changes everything. Okay, so what do you do when you realize you're stuck up there in the simulator and the real world is just passing you by? Let's talk about how to land the plane.
Here are 4 really practical, actionable steps you can take. First up, externalize it. Get a piece of paper and write the whole scenario down. Getting it out of that mental loop helps your brain kind of complete the thought so it can finally let go. Second, you have to ask that key question again. Is this preparing me or protecting me? Third, set a time limit. It's totally okay to visit the simulation, but you can't live there. Give yourself, say, 10 minutes to run through it, and then you consciously come back to the present. And finally, number 4, ground yourself. Physically feel your feet on the floor. Notice your breath going in and out. Look at something real in the room. This stuff activates your senses and pulls you right out of the simulation and back into your life.
See, by using these tools, we can stop being prisoners of our own minds. We can actually start to build a much healthier relationship with our inner world. And imagine a life that exists beyond the simulation.
I absolutely love this metaphor because it's so freeing.
Your mind is a river. You can't stop the river, but you can choose not to be swept away by it. The goal isn't just stop thinking or to get rid of these scenarios altogether. That's impossible. The goal is just to change your relationship with them, to be able to watch them flow by without getting completely lost in the current.
So, the big takeaway here is this. These incredibly detailed simulations are meant to be rehearsals, not replacements for your actual life. Acknowledge them, see what they're trying to prepare you for. But then, you have to take that insight and bring it back into the real world. You can't let the rehearsal become the entire show.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty deep question to think about. Your real life, it's messy, it's uncertain, it's completely unscripted. It is not going to follow the perfect story you create in your head. And the question is, can that be enough?